everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Josh. Today we're talking about Napoleon. This is Ridley Scott's new historical war drama. Just to touch on Ridley Scott for a second, I've seen a lot of hate for the guy lately, and I just want to point out how impressive it is that the guy's in his 80s now and is still pumping out movies like nothing else. And say what you want about him, but even some of his worst movies are very visually well done. From a spectacle standpoint, he's very talented. And honestly, The Last Duel is up there with some of his best films in my opinion. Things like Blade Runner, Gladiator, and Alien. Okay, it might not be literally on par with them, but it's pretty damn good. So I went into this with moderate expectations because I know he's capable of delivering great films still. And this is the story of Napoleon Bonaparte, the French war general turned emperor turned historical legend. The story kicks off in 1793 and sort of functions as a greatest hits of this guy's life. But in addition to giving us a lot of battle sequences and some insight into his war strategy, we also see his strained relationship with his first wife Josephine, who is here played by Vanessa Kirby. I forgot to mention that Joaquin Phoenix plays Napoleon, although if you're watching this you probably already know that. And once again here, I think Ridley Scott absolutely delivers on a technical level. The scope of the battle scenes, let alone the cinematography, set design, and just the visceral way the violence is executed. It's all so well done. There is one thing that happens early on in this film that I have not seen in a war movie before, and it genuinely made my eyes widen for a second out of pure shock. Unfortunately, the story here is definitely a letdown. I was a bit bored during the first half. I mean, this film as a whole is about 50% establishing shots and characters just walking around inside of a location, 25% actual interactions between Napoleon and his wife and allies/adversaries, and then about 25% battles. There's not much of a meaty storyline to grasp onto. It's just a series of bullet point events that are perhaps the most significant parts of his life. It's also quite long at about 2 hours and 35 minutes. The pacing is quite slow at times. Also, the way the main character here was handled I found to be confusing. It's just strange to me. When you read about Napoleon Bonaparte, he sounds like such a fascinating, compelling guy, whether we're talking about his brilliant war strategy or narcissism and the insecurity that fuels his narcissism. And the way he's portrayed here just felt very cartoonish. There isn't much complexity or pulling back the curtains to take a peek inside of his mind. Instead, this movie just paints a very simple dichotomy. On the battlefield, he's stern and intimidating, and then 2 seconds later, he'll be sitting at the dinner table doing the most bizarre, eccentric things, from crawling around on the floor to throwing food at people like a petulant child. A number of his lines garnered laughs from the audience too, and at first I thought it was unintentional, but I guess reading up on it, Ridley Scott did intend for certain parts of the movie to be funny. It creates a bit of a tonal clash if you ask me. This isn't the first time he's inserted humor in films like this. If you watched House of Gucci from 2021, Jared Leto's character was pretty much the comic relief in there. But if the humor was intentional, it just comes off as weird and out of place. The most striking example is during one battle scene, there's a dude just hitting the drums in the background and he gets nailed head on with a cannonball. And I'm just like, what was the point of that? Like, were we supposed to laugh? Going back to Napoleon though, Joaquin Phoenix is very talented. We all know that. He's one of my favorite actors working today. He's delivered countless performances that I think are just fantastic. But here he comes off as confused and disjointed. It's definitely not his fault. I blame the writers more so than him. I think the best performance here might actually be Vanessa Kirby. She doesn't get a ton of screen time, but she absolutely makes the most of what she's given. It's really just never a very good sign when most of the praises you can come up with for a movie are technical elements and not storytelling elements. It's the same issue that I take with a film like Dunkirk. People are going to disagree with me big time, especially comparing a movie like Napoleon to Dunkirk. But one of the issues I had with that film is that there were no characters to connect to, and there was not really much of a story to it at all. It kind of just felt like a video game cutscene. Granted, a very well-made video game cutscene with excellent visuals. So this is a situation where I would say, know what you're interested in. If you like movies that don't have a ton of dialogue and are more focused on the spectacle and less on the character-driven stuff and actual methodical storytelling with clear themes, maybe Napoleon is the Ridley Scott film for you. By the end, I just wasn't really a fan. I will say it picked up in the second half for sure. There was more dialogue, more characters being introduced, and the alliances between the characters became more complex. But as far as storytelling goes, this feels way too unsure of itself and weirdly unsure of what it's trying to say about its main character. So for Napoleon, I'm going to go with 2.5 out of 5 stars. Certainly not a terrible film. It's very well made from a technical standpoint, and I do respect it for that. So again, if you're into big visual spectacle and you don't mind the lack of story, it might still be worth a big screen watch for you. As always, I encourage people to go and see a film if they're interested in it and make up their own mind. And once you have seen it, do let me know in the comments what you thought of Napoleon. While you're at it, hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.